One big question that a lot of people ask is like, should you use live rock, live sand to start your tank? Alright guys, so I kind of did things in reverse. So I had the tank up there, I was trying to figure out what to do with the background. I'm not a permanent kind of guy, so usually I do the black background tape. However, I've been researching this background that the previous owner of this tank has been using. If you look over here, it's a nice black. It comes out in like a rubbery substance. So I was like, huh, what is this? Apparently people have been using this for aquarium background and I did not even know. In the past, people use like a spray can, they paint the back, but that's a little bit more permanent. Or some people like me who don't want something too permanent will use a kind of like a background cutout, but that has a tendency to kind of like roll off, like doesn't really stick that well. Turns out a lot of people actually started using Plasti Dip. What this is that once you spray it on, once it dries up, it's kind of a layer of rubber that you can just peel off easily. And I'll show you a little bit later. But for now, the first step is to clean up the tank to make sure there's no water spot like this right here. And to do that, I use 50% white vinegar and 50% RDI water mix. This is what I normally use to clean my glass. And normally I just kind of spray here. Spray pretty liberally, and I'd like to use a squeegee. Alright guys, so I kind of masked off the top and bottom trim. I probably do not even need to, simply because they're supposed to peel off really easily. You can just cut it and just peel it off. So I did not mask off this side of the glass, but I figure top and bottom trim will keep things a little bit cleaner. You probably don't need to, but hey, just want to try it. So here we go, I'm gonna shake it up a little bit. We're gonna apply a couple layers of coats. The first one will be really light, and then I believe it calls for about 15-20 minutes in between each coat. So let's do this. All right, well, we're gonna just let it chill a little bit and then we'll be back. Any place there seems to be still a gap, like try to hit it. All right guys, so this is the last coat. I actually did 6 coat in order to fully cover it. One concern that we have is that if I pull this masking tape off, is it gonna kind of like tear off the whole rubber piece because they're all connected? So Telegram actually has a really good tip. He said that once you apply the last layer, while it is still wet, you can pull the tape and it should be okay. Makes perfect sense, so we'll try it out. This is the 6th coat, and this should be the last. And I'll make sure the edge is still wet. Let's remove the tape and we will see how it works out. Moment of truth. Oh, looks good. Comes right off. Look at that. Boom. Excellent. All right, so this is the final results. It's looking really nice and clean. Really, really nice. Ah, man, I love it. And I know that it's going to be super flat. It's not like a piece of the plastic wrap where it may kind of detach. And with the added bonus that if I get tired of black, or if I need to take it off for whatever reason, I can just peel it off because it's just like a rubber sheet. So this is perfect for people who's afraid of commitment. Not that I am. Alright guys, with the tank clean, we're gonna start adding substrate to the tank. I had to decide whether I want to go bare bottom or with a sand bottom. Since I've done the bare bottom with green style polyp already, I figure I'll go back to sand because I really like that look. The next piece is like, which kind of sand do I want to use? My go-to has been KFC's Fiji Pink. It's fantastic sand, but it's slightly expensive because the ones I find, they have water in there because they quote-unquote have live bacteria. I never really rely on it. I just let the tank cycle anyway, so it doesn't make a big difference to me. A lot of SPS Keeper seems to really like the sand from Tropic Eden. They have 2 types. One is the Reef Flakes, the other one is the Mini Flakes. The Reef Flakes are heavier grain size, so they're heavier. The advantage being that because in the SPS tank, the water current's really fast. So if you have like the lighter grain, smaller grain size sand, they may get blown all over the place. That's when you see like bald spots and you see mounts. With heavier grain size, they stay in place and they still look like sand. I believe these are actually a core skeleton. For me, I picked the smaller grain size from Tropic Eden. I picked the Tonga Mini Flakes. So a lot of people, what they do is that they mix both. They mix the Mini Flakes and the Reef Flakes, right, in the large Reef tank. And I think that's what I'll do in my 150 gallon. But in the case of the 10 gallon, the Mini Flakes, I believe will be perfect. I do have almost a full bag. I had this bag for my 45 gallon. I was losing sand, like they're getting pushed away. So I refilled it with the Mini Flakes instead of the Fiji Pink. And the Mini Flake has been staying in place because I believe the grain size may be a little bit heavier or larger than the Fiji Pink. They're roughly 2mm. I made you double check on the grain size, so don't quote me on it in terms of size, but just visually, I believe these are a little bit larger, so they stay in place a little bit better. And I want that because I feel like the flow in this tank is gonna be pretty high with the Aqua Clear 70 in the back, pushing water. In terms of adding sand, usually I like to do it when the tank is dry. Although to be completely honest, I don't think it matters that much. Once you add water in, it's gonna kick everything up anyway, so it'll need a day or two to settle. And usually with sand, they do say that you want to rinse gently with water before using, especially these ones, these dry ones. But just from all the review that I'm seeing online, it seems like people don't even rinse them because they're so clean. You know, the water will just clear out pretty fast. So that's what I did with the 45. Is drop the sand in, no problem at all. So with the 10, since it's a brand new tank anyways, I have no problem doing water change afterwards. I think I'm just gonna drop the sand in and then add the water, add some rock, and we'll call it a day and start letting it cycle and get things started. Oh, by the way, I don't think I'll add that much sand in the tank because unless I can push it to like 4 to 6 inches or even 8 inches, it's mostly just aesthetic. So I'm probably just gonna do like a thin layer, mostly for aesthetic reason. So the sand is in place and is looking more and more like a reef tank. I added just a little bit above the black trim, just to kind of give an idea that, hey, we got a sand bottom. The sand is quite white and with some pink specks in there. It feels really nice, although when I pour it in, I do get like some white powder coming up. So the water will be cloudy for a little bit, but it's okay. Now, you notice that I have the sand in there first. If I'm doing a larger tank with a deeper sand bed, I'll absolutely do the rock first. Get the rock structure in place and then pour the sand around it. But since this tank is so small and the sand bed is so shallow, look, it's just this much, half an inch. It's no problem. I pour the sand in first and then I'll pick the rocks and build the structure afterwards. I just want to make sure the rock is going to sit on the bottom glass. Like I'll push it in all the way in and make sure it's sitting on the glass instead of on the sand. Next up, I'm gonna drop a couple pieces of rock in there.
2 hours later.
So I just did a really basic scape here. I think things are gonna change as I started putting water and stuff in there and see how it looks after a while. So for rock, I went with Bucani rock, which is a little bit harder to get now. But basically I went with Bucani because they're so light, they're really porous, and I just really like the shape. The shape just looks really organic. And a bonus is that it usually comes with a lot of larger holes. Even though they're porous, they also have like large holes, which usually fit some of the frag plugs. And also because they're so light and porous, they're really easy to chip and drill. Well, not drill because like you may crack the whole thing, but like just chip things off and break things apart. It's pretty easy to do. So if you want to shape a rock, I think Bucani is a really easy way to go. But of course, there are other really nice options, like nice dry rock option out on the market. For example, the macro rock seems to be really well regarded as well. Also reef safer rock from BLS. But for me, for this tank at least, I'm gonna use Bucani rock since I have some laying around and I am a fan of the Bucani rock. I do think that the water is gonna magnify things a little bit. So right now it looks a little sparse, but I feel like once the water goes in, things may things may magnify a little. But for the most part, I try to keep things relatively to the center since this is going to be a peninsula tank, meaning that it will be viewable from both sides. And as always, I really like the big stack and a little island look shown here. I'm leaving some headroom because right there I plan to put some frog spawn there to kick things off. So we'll need that height. It will kind of get that height over here, and I plan to keep this portion a little bit low, at least in the beginning, to see how it goes. So this is what it looks like from the front. I'm trying to make sure from different viewports, like that side, this side, and that side, there's always some kind of center focus. So for here would be definitely this piece right here. Up here, this part is gonna take the cake right here, especially the top. Probably can't keep many things on this side because light will be blocked. And over here, this is kind of like the primary view. One big question that a lot of people ask is like, should you use live rock, live sand to start your tank? In my case, I have been just starting off with dry sand and dry rock because I feel like using especially dry rock, it gives me some time to kind of play with the rockscape first before. If I'm using live rock, I feel like an urgency to really get all the rock in the water and do all the escape in the water, and it never turned out good for me. For me, I like to really play around with the rock outside the tank first, find a combination I like, and then transfer everything into the tank while it's still dry. And while it's still dry, I have some time to kind of play around, make sure they're locked together tightly, and make sure it looks good from every single angle before I add the water. Now you may be asking, okay, well, so will the dry rock ever have life in it? So after you're done with dry rock and dry sand, you cycle your tank, and that's when the bacteria is going to colonize the rock and sand and turn them into quote unquote live rock and live sand. Now to take it to the next level, I also like to bring other rock pebbles from established tank, for example, from my 45-gallon tank, or I will go to other reefers and just ask for a couple pieces of like little rocks, and I'll use them to seed this tank. That's what it means by seeding your tank with rock from another tank. Basically, the bacteria and also those microfaunals, like little creatures, will migrate from that little rock you bring into this sterile condition and kind of colonize this new environment. That's when these dry rock turn to live rocks, and that's when these dry sand turn to live sand. So at least for my purpose, I like to start with dry rock and dry sand to make sure there's no pest and I have time to really aquascape. And after everything is established, I'll add other live rocks or live sand to help seed this tank, as you will see in the following video. So with that said, let's get some water into this tank.